Back in January, I did a big poll to better understand the problems that you, my listeners, are currently dealing with. And one of the biggest problems that came up was something I just really hadn't talked about a lot yet: hormones. There were four categories of hormonal questions that came up, and they were all around periods, pregnancy and postpartum, perimenopause, and PCOS. I call them the four Ps. Now, I find that most conversations around these hormones make them sound super complicated or super unhelpful, but in reality, they can be explained and supported in super simple ways. So, I wanted to create my own series showing you exactly how I think of and support my hormones and my clients' hormones at each of these stages. Today's topic is all about perimenopause. I'm going to be answering what perimenopause is, what age perimenopause should happen at, and two natural perimenopause support strategies you can use at any age to prepare for and manage this transition. Today is part 3 of that healthy hormone series, and next week is going to be our last part 4, PCOS. Almost every woman is going to go through these stages of hormones at some point in their life, or we know someone going through them right now. So be sure to stay tuned. You don't want to miss this series. Hey friend, welcome to the Better Belly podcast. If you're currently trying endless supplements, doctor visits, and diet changes to heal your mystery symptoms, you are in the right place. We're here to solve the real root causes behind your gut, hormones, skin, sleep, and brain concerns. Literally anything and everything in your body. My name is Allison Jordan. I'm a functional medicine practitioner that has supported over 150 clients just like you to heal problems that no one has been able to fix. You don't need a perfect diet or a random supplement you found on Instagram to heal. You need a proven system that heals your whole body from the inside out. That's what I'm here to share with you, episode by episode. It's time to make health easy again. And just as a reminder, this information is not meant to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own health practitioner before you make any changes to your health. Okay, guys, so before we get into today's topic, just a reminder about our 200th episode giveaway that is happening right now, meaning if you go and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify for this podcast between now and May 29th, take a screenshot of that rating and review and submit it to betterbellytherapies.com/giveaway, you will automatically receive an email with a code for $200 off the Better Belly Blueprint. That is, you will automatically get $200 off the Better Belly Blueprint, which is my premier coaching program where I teach you and guide you through every single step you need to do, the exact steps you need to heal your gut so you can poop daily, ditch acid reflux, and balance your hormones. Whatever is going on with your hormones, whatever is going on with your gut, I teach you how to find and fix those things, even if everything else you've tried prior to this point hasn't worked. It's literally a program built for the people who everything you've done thus far hasn't worked. The diet changes, the doctor appointments, the expensive supplements. If you're like, oh my gosh, Allison, that is me, I want this thing, then go and leave a rating and review and you get $200 off the entire course. You must use that code by the end of May, so May 31st, 2024 at midnight. But you can use that at any time. And then additionally, when you join this giveaway, so that you submit this screenshot of your review for the podcast, you automatically get entered into a giveaway option where we're going to be having one lucky winner, get a full ride scholarship to the Better Belly Blueprint, meaning when you join this giveaway, you could automatically just get in. And say you join and you still win, I will refund you whatever you paid to get in. So don't wait to join. Go and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I have links for all of this in the show notes if you just want to click a quick link, be taken to the right spot to leave a review, get a quick link to go and submit out the form, betterbellytherapies.com/giveaway. And everything else is going to be taken care of after that for you. So I'm so excited. Our 200th episode is coming up soon. And I guess a quick little plug, I'm going to mention this at the end of the episode too, but if you're like, Better Belly Blueprint, that was like such a quick, like what's involved and how are you getting these results for people even when nothing else has worked? That is a great question. And I actually have a free training for you. I call it a micro training because it is the shortest thing out there that is the most amount of information in it that I've ever seen. Go to betterbellytherapies.com/training and you can get access to this training and you can see exactly what is inside the Better Belly Blueprint that's making it so different than all these other programs out there. I don't want to take your time on this podcast episode right now because I want to talk about perimenopause, but you can go and watch that training for free. Again, go to betterbellytherapies.com/training at any point on your own time. You can watch it at 2x speed, whatever you want to do. And it's going to teach you a lot more about what's going on and why we're getting such amazing results for our clients in the Better Belly Blueprint program. Okay, that end of that little spiel. Moving on. Let's talk about perimenopause. I hope today, my goal for today, just like with all my hormone episodes thus far, is to share some information you've probably never heard of before. It is commonly information that when someone's come into my office or I'm working one-to-one with a client, when I tell them this information, they just like look at me with big eyes and like, why has no one said this to me before? Because it's groundbreaking. I feel like I've tried to give you the best nuggets regarding periods, the best nuggets regarding pregnancy and postpartum, and today we're going to hit into perimenopause. So I want you to listen wide. Like, I'm raising my hand over here as I record this podcast. I'm not in perimenopause. However, everything I share today in this episode is something actionable you can do to help your perimenopause, whether you're in that season or not. Or maybe you're like 42 and you're like, am I going through perimenopause? I don't know. Everything I share today is 100% relevant to you, whether you are 20 or 40 or 50, maybe even 60. And I say that because I get my 60-year-old clients who still are getting symptoms like they're in perimenopause, even though like they haven't had a period, but they're still getting hot flashes or they're still getting acne or there's the hot flashes is that ongoing annoying thing of like, why is this happening? We're going to talk about that in today's episode. So keep your ears and eyes open, mainly your ears and eyes if you're driving. Okay. I'm being weird today, you guys. So let's talk about real quick. We're going to talk about what perimenopause is, what age it happens at, and how to support it really quick. What perimenopause is the transition of a cycling woman, so a woman who's getting a period, which is being regulated by her ovaries, sending out estrogen and progesterone, and then her liver detoxing those hormones, and then her ovaries taking a break and letting those hormone levels go down, which is when you menstruate. To suddenly, your ovaries are not producing estrogen, progesterone consistently, and then they're actually ending up to the point where they're not really creating any estrogen or progesterone at all. And that's when you're in full menopause, when you're kind of out of the bumpy, crazy season, is when the ovaries are just done. But perimenopause is the in-between season where the ovaries are like kind of like a car that's like running out of gas. They're like chugging, like poof, 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 poof. And so as you get these little puffs of they're working, you might have a period, you may have a normal cycle, you may ovulate, but then they'll kind of shut down again. And that's when you get that sudden drop in hormones. It's when you're more likely to have things like hot flashes and mood instability. You're like moods all over the place because women's moods can be all over the place, like with periods, which I talk about in my period episode, because of how our hormones, we have different concoctions of hormones literally every single week of the month. They're changing and they're different. It's not just when we menstruate, though that's its own unique fun time. But when you're going through perimenopause, it's really unpredictable. It could be the beginning of the day is one way, the end of the day is another. It's not even like you think, periods are crazy or menstruating is crazy where it's 1 week of the month is you could generally say every 7 days is different from the next 7 days. But yeah, it could be hour to hour difference with perimenopause, which is just part of the craziness of it. But y'all, there is a way to make perimenopause less intense, even given the fact that the ovaries are being a little inconsistent. And that's what I'm going to talk about. Those two natural ways we're going to support your hormones in perimenopause. That has to do with how to create stability even when the ovaries are being unstable. So the next thing is what age it happens at. And this is a big question I get. I get clients who, when they're on a call with me, as we're doing a kickoff call, with my VIP clients and they're telling me their symptoms and what's going on. And they'll say, well, I'm 45 and I think I'm in perimenopause. And really what we're ideally looking for is perimenopause starting around age 50. So like maybe 49, maybe late 48. But I'm really solidly thinking if you're not, 50 or really close to 50, we don't want to see you going through perimenopause, because what that means is that your ovaries aren't performing the way they need to be at your age. I will say I was, I don't know, 22, 25-ish, something like that. I'd have to do the math when I lost my period for 2 years as part of my illness journey, and even what has led me to be running this business and discovering all these principles that's actually healing people, because my doctors couldn't get my period to come back. And I had a whole host of other problems too, like constipation, acid reflux, fatigue, muscle, like weight loss, food sensitivities that were increasing out of nowhere. But I lost my period. And that's kind of like, you could basically say I was a 20-year-old who had gone through menopause and at a certain point, like I wasn't cycling. And so that was a problem. And at 20, I wouldn't be like, oh, maybe I'm going through menopause. And that's kind of the same way in your 40s. If you're seeing menopause happen in your especially early or mid 40s, you really want to be thinking something is off. My body is trying to create an alarm and say, we need more support. But unfortunately, doctors can't give that support. They can give you medication to put a Band-Aid over the symptoms and make them less intense. And I'm very generally pro, like, get through your life, like take what medication you need so that you're not in pain, or you can do your job, or you can take care of your children, whatever you're doing during the day. However, we want to take a clue and take a hint. So if you're listening to this and you are like solidly before 48, but you think you're going through perimenopause, you might have genuine hormone imbalance, but we don't want to consider it a natural perimenopause, meaning like your body's, it's like, it's the right time and the right way for it to go through it. Okay. So think 50 plus. Now, how long perimenopause can last can vary. And that is, like you could be in perimenopause 50 to 55, 57, things like that. There's a lot of variety. But what we really want to see as you're going through perimenopause is to make it as smooth as possible. And that gets us to, how do you actually support yourself as you approach perimenopause, which, heads up, we're all approaching it. Like I'm 32, almost 32, and I'm approaching it, right? It's far off, but I am approaching it. It's going to happen. And there's things we can be doing now. So let's talk about what actually happens as you transition to perimenopause. We already talked about the ovaries. The ovaries are like slowly shutting down. They're like running out of gas, like choo, 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 choo. And they're behaving a little inconsistently. That's going to happen. But there's two organs that we end up relying on as you transition into menopause and as you're going through perimenopause. And they are let me word this differently. I like doing it this way. We're going to do a little pop quiz thing. Do you know what part of your body makes your hormones, your sex hormones, after your ovaries stop? I feel like I should be singing like do 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 do. What part of your body makes your sex hormones, so progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, after your ovaries stop? I really just want to see the look on your face. You guys are probably like, just tell me, Allison. Okay. Your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are what makes your estrogen and progesterone after your ovaries stop, or as they're stopping. So the best way you could possibly support your body and your experience of going through perimenopause, even if you're going through it right now, like it's not like you're too late if you are listening and you're like, well, I'm 52 and I'm definitely going through it and it sucks. As you're listening to me, I'm just trying to make sure that everyone who's listening isn't just like, I'm 22, I'm going to tune out, I'm not listening to this episode. Please do listen. And this can support you at any point. We want to support your adrenal glands. So that's one thing. That's going to be the one natural way we can support perimenopause as you go through it. I'm going to actually give you some specific ways, like how do you support, like, I don't mean to make that vague, but we're going to dive into it. And the other one is your liver, because as your body's chugging out these hormones and transitioning, Your liver is like it actually has been your entire life. It's the main organ that detoxes hormones. So if you get a big wave of hormones and they need to be evened out and detox, that's all your liver. And that's been true while you've been on your period. It's been true even before you were on your like before you menstruated. So when you were 10 and you weren't menstruating, your liver still was detoxing the few amount of hormones you did have. And as you go through perimenopause, we want your liver as healthy as possible, just like we wanted it your whole life. But that is going to minimize or help to flatline your roller coaster hormones. So your highs aren't as high when your liver is properly functioning because it's detoxing, and your lows aren't as low because your adrenal glands should be picking up and creating some baseline consistency hormone production. So let's talk about adrenal glands. When your adrenal glands the worse your perimenopause is, the higher correlation research has found that your adrenal glands are in a state of fatigue. And there's actually some interesting research out there that I could not find. I was like, I probably read it 10 years ago, because I'm a nerd and I just wouldn't have saved it. But there's this interesting research where they looked at around the world women's reported perimenopause and menopause symptoms. So hot flashes, mood swings, all of that. They looked at their reported symptoms, the severity of the symptoms, and how long the symptoms last. Is it a 6-month process? Is it a 5-year process? And then they looked at how much those women report stress levels in those countries. So I remember uniquely, like the two biggest differences was United States versus Sweden. And Sweden had the lowest reported rate of stress for the women in their country, and the U.S. had one of the highest, if not the highest, reported levels of stress in their country. And there's a direct correlation that they observe between reported stress and reported perimenopause symptoms. And that's just one little piece of research, and this article was really suggesting this is something we're seeing in multiple ways. And their theory was because, as science knows, we know that the adrenal glands take over the role of creating hormones after and as the ovaries stop. And so their theory is we want to have the healthiest adrenal glands possible to have the smoothest perimenopause possible. And that's why we are actually preparing for perimenopause our entire lives, because we're preparing by how well we are supporting our adrenal glands. So the big question becomes, how do you support the adrenal glands? Like, are we taking ashwagandha? Are we like meditating? Are we like doing boxed breathing? Are we just like trying to sleep a lot? Like, how do we do it? And this is one of the big things that I find is oversimplified in mass media, and therefore getting people not phenomenal results, because it's like all the things I just listed. Take ashwagandha and like, don't be stressed. And you're like, don't be stressed. We're all going to have stressful things in our lives happen. Having kids is stressful. Giving birth is stressful. Getting a new job is stressful. No one is immune to problems in their lives, whether that's natural disasters or problems with your home or problems with jobs. And so it's not like it's unrealistic to say you're going to control all those factors. But there are 3 ways that the adrenal glands are impacted. There's 3 types of stress that the adrenal glands experience. The first one we've already talked about, and it's typically the first one that people think of, which is psychological stress. One of my favorite ways to evaluate psychological stress is actually the Holmes-Rahe Life Stress Inventory. This is a kind of tally mark, just checklist where you go through and you read every single life event and you ask what has happened to you in the last 12 months, and you check off if one of them are true. And then at the very bottom, it says, if it adds up, if your total points adds up to 150 points or less, it means a relatively low amount of life change, and stress-induced life change. 150 to 300, and then 300 or more is like a lot of life stress. And I have found this, it's not the only source of stress by any means, but this can be very grounding if you look at this list and you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, in the last 12 months, or maybe it wasn't the last 12 months, but like from 2020 to 2021, you had a score of over 300, which would be high. Things like that. You can suddenly have a lot more self-compassion and grounding of, here are some sources of psychological stress. So am including a link to the Holmes Rahi Life Stress Inventory just in the show notes if you want to go check it out. And I'm going to read a couple of them here and then move on to a couple other things on psychological stress. So like the top 5 here is death of a spouse, divorce, marital separation from mate, detention in jail or other institute, and death of a close family member. So a lot of death, divorce, like kind of relational turmoil. There's other marriage, which is actually positive. Like it's not saying anything negative about marriage, but it's just saying there's a lot of change involved in marriage, and literally just getting married, having a wedding is the 7th most stressful thing you can do. Major personal injury or illness is number 6. Y'all, everybody who's listening to this, you are listening to it because you don't feel well. No one's listening to this because they're like, I felt so great today. I'm going to go find a podcast episode on perimenopause, right? Major personal injury or illness. So if you've, it includes things like car accidents or needing a surgery or, pneumonia, but it also includes things like chronic hormonal imbalance, chronic GI pain, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, all of these things, especially when you can't figure it out. That's literally number 6. I actually don't think I've ever realized this. I'm literally looking at this list and my mind's being blown. But there's others, like number 8, the 8th most stressful thing is being fired at work. There's retirement from work, which would be, exciting, but also stressful. There's just change, how you spend your hours, how much money you make every month. Pregnancy is number 12. Again, a very happy thing, but like pregnancy itself, they're just saying it's life change and it's stressful. So go check out that list. It's really phenomenal, and can really ground you in some psychological stressors you've been going through. Other types of stress we could consider are trauma, especially childhood trauma. A lot of us probably aren't children listening to this, but if we've had various childhood traumas, we carry those with us and they're kind of frozen in our cells. And that is a source of stress. And on this podcast, we don't specialize in psychological support for these things, but it's just an awareness piece of, yes, these are stressful things, these are ways that the adrenal glands can slowly get worn down. And if you think the adrenal glands really start fresh when we're born, as fresh as they're going to get. That's when they're fresh. And then they slowly get whittled away. So you imagine by the time you're 50 plus and you're starting perimenopause, you really want to have supported the adrenal glands as much as possible. Not be, listening to the news is another psychological stressor for at least me, right? I try to minimize that and find other ways of getting news without having to watch the news. But that is psychological. The next one is the one that we work about on the most here in the Better Belly podcast and in my program, the Better Belly Blueprint. And it's the one often most looked over when I'm looking at someone's adrenal glands. Because I get a lot of people who say, well, I've gotten counseling and I do breath work and I do yoga and I do all these things to try and help support my psychological state. I've got clients who they're amazing. And I imagine you listening to this, you've been trying to, I try to work on my inner child and my childhood trauma and all these different things. It's like, none of us are perfect, but you're like, if you've already tried that, usually the one that's missing for most people is biochemical. And biochemical stressors are going to be things like eating foods you're sensitive to that you don't realize you're sensitive to, having poor digestion, like low stomach acid, low bile production, low pancreatic enzymes, having hidden pathogens like mold toxicity, Lyme disease, parasites, candida, Clostridia difficile, which is C. diff, H. pylori. All the things that we look for in the blueprint are things that my clients, no one's ever come into the blueprint and not had these problems. Why? Because they're the chronic symptom people that doctors aren't helping. And these are the pathogens they're missing consistently. Heavy metal presences, which I'd say is like a 25% of my clients have a massive or a significant heavy metal problem that is behind a lot of their symptoms. So if you're not dealing with a heavy metal problem, heavy metals can create so much havoc in the body. And that's going to cause your adrenal glands are going to respond to having toxins constantly around. It's going to create a chronic fight and flight response because you're pushing out cortisol to try and manage all the inflammation in your body. Cortisol's a inflammation manager. Same with cortisone. And so if you're constantly pushing these things out, then your adrenal glands, even if you're literally at the beach, right? You're having a calm day, you're feeling peaceful, everything's at ease in your life. If you have a parasite and you have uranium in your body, which is a recent client of mine had both of those, your body's not at ease. You're not going to feel great. And maybe your symptoms will even be moderate. Maybe you don't feel horrible, but you will eventually because your adrenal glands are going to be responding to that. And most likely you are having that brain fog. You are having fatigue. You are having anxiety due to the heavy metals causing neuroinflammation. And the last one key toxin that we look for in the Better Belly Blueprint, because they're the toxins that are not being addressed really well, is nutrient deficiencies. So heavy metals can cause nutrient deficiencies because they'll push out and replace natural normal minerals with the heavy metals. So you're actually deficient, but also mineral deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies from having leaky gut, not absorbing foods really well, having poor digestion. So you don't break down food, so you can't absorb. Like maybe you're eating all the superfoods or you're eating all the fermented foods and you still feel bad. That can be a component of you not actually breaking down food well enough. And there's no digestive enzyme out there that's going to fix that. You really need to heal it from the root up. And that's what I teach in my program. So those are the toxins biochemically that we're thinking about: pathogens, food sensitivities, digestion, heavy metals, and nutrient deficiencies. And that's going to really cause the adrenal glands to constantly be on guard, whether you're sleeping, right? Think about sleeping and not feeling rested after you're sleeping. Your adrenal glands were working the entire time when these biochemical stressors are present, and they are hidden. Your doctors cannot find them with the testing that they regularly do. So blood work can't find it. These are very unique, and you need functional medicine testing, which doctors don't have access to. They literally can't It's like going to an Italian restaurant. Their menu is just not going to have a burger on it, or it's not going to have Mexican enchilada on it, right? So biochemical. And the last stressor that you want to be thinking about is physical. So physical is going to be car accidents, surgeries, sports injuries or collisions, falling off a horse, falling on ice, did I already say car accident? Probably did. Physical things that you can also go through is positive things, but they're still stressful. So marathon and marathon training, running those things, or triathlon, whatever type of endurance sports is very physically stressful to the body. It can be healthy for you, but it is just one more stressor. And for some people, it's too much. Their bodies, it's not healthy for them. They're not in a good spot to maintain it, but they'll still push themselves through and do it, either because they love the sport or because they feel that they ought to or need to do it. And being pregnant, giving birth, those are physical, where your tissue and your body's just going through a lot. So we go through physical stressors. And again, it's not just the one stressor, the one time you gave birth, but it's that you gave birth 3 times, or that you had a traumatic birth, or that you had a traumatic birth and you had a loss of a loved one and you had a parasite all at the same time. That's the most common scenario, where someone says, my life was just never the same after my first pregnancy or second pregnancy or third pregnancy, or, I just moved to a new city. Most of my clients never notice. I'll be like, when did your symptoms start? They say last May. I said, did you move to a new house, or did you move to a new city? Did you change jobs? It's not every client, but the ones who say, yeah, I'm like, that is it's like you moved to a new city and we're going to do testing and find out whatever hidden biochemical stressors you have and all of the historical problems that have been going on, just kind of colliding and creating the worst case scenario. And then you hit 50 and your ovaries kick out and your adrenal glands are like, we can't do anything. We are in adrenal fatigue. And adrenal fatigue is, you can't just take ashwagandha or some herb to overcome it. And definitely caffeine is not helping, because caffeine whips the adrenal glands. But you're like, but Allison, I survive off of caffeine. Don't just stop drinking it, right? You need to have a plan. And my clients regularly, when we get them on their plan, they get off caffeine and they'll miss the taste of coffee, but they are floored that they do not need the caffeine because they have energy all day suddenly. It's just beautiful and amazing. So that is how you support the adrenal glands. Then there's the liver, and this is all about detoxing the hormones that you actually are going to create. So the way you support the liver is, the first thing is you reduce overall toxin load, which I actually just broke down when I talked about biochemical stressors. These are all the toxins your bodies are going to be exposed to: food sensitivities, poor digestion, so low stomach acid, low bile production, low pancreatic enzymes, Poor fat assimilation is one I hadn't said yet. Hidden pathogens, heavy metals, and nutrient deficiencies. By the way, I went over it real fast. Poor fat assimilation means you can digest the fat, you can break it down, but you actually can't bring it into your cell and make it usable. And you need some key components to that to make that happen, like something called acetyl L-carnitine. And that is something that I actually test in one of the tests in my program, the organic acids test. One of the things that test shows, it shows a lot of things, but one of them is, can you assimilate fat? And there's some key markers. You look at it and you say, if they're normal range, you assimilate fat fine. If they're high range, you don't assimilate fat. And it's super simple. And then I teach you how to help your body be able to do that again. And people, once you assimilate fat, you lose weight, you have less brain fog, you can focus more because a lot of times your hormones improve because hormones are all fat based. Hormones are all made out of cholesterol. That's where they start. And then they go through some chemical changes, but hormones are fat based. We have vitamins that are fat based, like vitamin A, vitamin D. Everyone cares about vitamin D. If you want good vitamin D, you need to be able to assimilate fat. Otherwise, I don't care how much vitamin D is in your body, you will still have symptoms as if you have low vitamin D. You need fat to have good cell wall retention, meaning your cells can talk to, insulin so you can have good blood sugar levels. You need to have good fat assimilation. And you can't just do it by eating fat or not eating fat. It's not about diet. It's about what's chemically going on in your body and what's keeping you from assimilating fat. And I teach you how to find those things and do it in a really organized manner. If this seems crazy, there's a step-by-step exact, here's what you do next, here's what you do next, here's what you do next, way to heal the body from the root up. So you're going to want to reduce overall toxin load to help the liver, and then you want to open your detox pathways. So we're all going to be exposed to toxins. So the next thing you want to do is actually help your liver function better. And I have a very clear process for that in the Better Billy Blueprint. If you kind of want to know more about detox pathways and just learn, I've never heard of this, or I've heard of detoxing. Are you talking about drinking green smoothies? I am not. I do actually have a whole podcast episode series on the 7 detox pathways. It's episodes 104 through 111. I actually have links that I'm putting in the show notes so you can see all of them. The detox pathways include gut, bladder, skin, lymph, glymph, liver, and spleen. If you've never heard of glymph, definitely go check out that episode. It is a really cool episode. It's going to update you on a real anatomical part of your body that people don't talk about, and it's in your brain, and it's amazing. So go check out those episodes if you just want to know generally more about detox pathways. But in my program, I literally put out the exact order you need to do everything so it's less overwhelming and so you get maximum results in the fastest time possible without kind of DIYing and being did I get everything? Am I doing this right? You also get lifetime support when you join the program. So you can get support every step of the way. So if you're tired of just DIYing it and wondering if you're doing something right or if you missed a step or anything, that's a huge bonus to the program, is joining and finally just feeling confident you're doing the right thing to heal your body. Honestly, in 3 to 6 months, our clients on average are seeing an 80% improvement in their symptoms in just 3 to 6 months. Which is, it's just mind blowing to them because they've been spending potentially years or decades trying to heal, and suddenly it's actually working. And so it's because of the order we do things in. It's because of the labs we give you access to for wholesale pricing. It's because of the support you get to make sure you don't get derailed onto some direction that isn't going to work. We literally had a client ask recently, she's like, does this type of, detoxing work? What do you think? And we're able to be no, actually, we've never seen any correlation with that helping our clients. And it's going to save her hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to not go and pursue this therapy. And then she asked another question, has this worked? I'm like, yeah, this is actually in one of your protocols. And we totally have seen this be life-changing for clients. And so just getting that clear, being able to getting daily one-to-one coaching so you can ask questions and know you're on the right track is groundbreaking. And again, we have our giveaway going on here in May where you can get $200 off that entire program. It's basically 20% off. And I I do not do sales regularly, or I don't offer discounts or anything like that on some like regular, very clockwork basis. I like doing it as fun surprises and just realizing it's the 200th episode. So we're going to do this. So dude, if you want to get that $200 off in May, go leave a rating and review for the Better Belly podcast on Apple Podcast or on Spotify. Take a screenshot of the review, submit it to our giveaway form, which is betterbellytherapies.com/giveaway, or just use all the links in the show notes to guide you there. And you will be able to submit that, get your $200 off, and also be entered to potentially win that whole full scholarship ride, which we'll be announcing at the end of May. You can use the $200 code to also until the end of May 31st. So guys, that is how you can support menopause naturally. It's how I'm supporting my hormones and my approach to menopause and perimenopause. And the fun fact is a lot of these strategies also are going to support your period. They're going to support your PCOS. They're going to support a lot of things that can be going on with us as women hormonally, so that we can have the best hormones our entire life. And it's just so cool that there's not like something massively unique you need to do for these things. There are different things like weight training when you're in perimenopause and menopause more than doing cardio, eating more protein and fat when you're in perimenopause and menopause. But I didn't want to dig into that today because sometimes you can be doing all those things and still not getting great results. And it's because of the toxins. It's because the liver needs support. It's because the adrenal glands need to be addressed. And people just aren't talking about that. And they're not talking about the biochemical stressors in particular, especially. So, I guess the one thing I didn't talk about, and I do apologize for being out of order, is how to support your body physically if you've gone through surgeries and things like that. And this really, we're looking at stretching, we're looking at regular exercise, but not over exercise. We're looking at acupuncture, chiropractic care, craniosacral therapy, visceral manipulation, which are the two manual therapies I do, and they make huge life-changing results. I guess I didn't mention it too much because I also, in my program, have a whole module on doing self-evaluation to determine if you need these therapies. And I teach you how to find people who do these therapies if essentially physical stressor is something that's affecting your body and something that will be key to you healing. So, physical thing, any type of physical injury, you're going to be looking at physical ways to heal yourself physically, which is again like anything from as simple as sleeping and stretching and getting regular movement into your life, but also more specific medicinal care such as chiropractic, PT, acupuncture, craniosacral therapy, visceral manipulation, etc. So that is it. That is how you can support perimenopause at any age, whether you're in it right now or you're approaching it, or even if you're past it, but you're still having some weird symptoms going on. Do these things and also join the Better Belly Blueprint. I would love to see you in there, help you balance your hormones finally for good and have the hormones you want moving into the next year, into the next decade, the next 2, 3, 4 decades of your life. Just finally get that foundation you've been looking for without having to stay on some crazy restricted diet or buy expensive supplements the rest of your life. So that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you guys next week. Hey friend, I hope you loved this episode. If you've been a fan for a while or newly loving this podcast, can you do me a favor? Drop into Apple Podcasts and leave me a review. When you leave a review, you do so much. You help me know you're listening, you can tell me what you're loving so I know what to make more of, and you help others by boosting this podcast so other people like you can find the podcast too. I mean, it's a win-win-win, right? So if you want a way to pay it forward, just go to Apple Podcasts or click the link in my show notes and leave a rating and review. And if you want some more free stuff, just head over to my free Facebook group, betterbellytherapies.com/Facebook, and you can get access to all of my free support for you, including some Facebook group exclusive stuff like my podcast episode vault, where you can search the Better Belly podcast by topic and find exactly what you need to expedite your healing. I cannot wait to see you in there. Catch you guys next week.